Not a question, just an appreciation. I wish that the 4 people who are getting housed by HIP housing in Half Moon Bay were 400 or 40 or even 5. It's a wonderful program, and I just wish that more people were aware of it and took advantage. We really talked about housing in just about every council meeting, and this is one way that without extra building, we can actually house people who need housing. So I'm highly in favor of the program, and I wish it were known more widely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope we continue to work to build more stronger relationships in the area as well. We were interviewed on KHMB last year by, I can't remember the name of the radio announcer, but that was always super lovely to have our voices heard on air, and hopefully through word of mouth as well, we'll be able to strengthen those ties.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nina. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And do we have a Mid-Coast Community Council update this evening?
We do. I believe Greg Dieguez is here to speak.
I'm here as long as power lasts. It's been up and down a half a dozen times in the last half an hour, so I apologize if you don't hear from me for the full extent of my brief testimony. I'll mention first that some of you already know I've tried to campaign with Governor Newsom, Senator Becker, Assemblyman Berman, and the county to develop an exemption for in-person attendance by council and board members that have immunocompromised family members. I've received a warm welcome, had a nice dialogue with the staff at Senator Becker's going back and forth, but I can make no promises as to what they're going to do by when. So we're just going to have to hang loose. It will definitely affect our council if it's not approved, if an exemption is not approved. So meanwhile, we're going to try and do the best we can with hybrid meetings. Crystalline of your Chamber of Commerce has shared her setup with us, and we've explored several other things. On the other front, speaking of infrastructure, we are most interested in remedying the 6 to 10 deficiencies in our infrastructure locally. Some of you saw my presentation at the Half Moon Bay Chamber of Commerce. The list continues to grow. Of immediate concern, by no coincidence, is telecommunications and connectivity. We should have a report out within a week or two, a couple of dozen pages assessing our connectivity and reception and proposing some options. I'll be glad to share it with Half Moon Bay. I certainly will going to lobby. And as you know, Becker and Mueller are already aware and have talked about increasing the connection of the cable and so forth. But it goes beyond that. Perhaps a new antenna for emergency communications. And it was a fascinating analysis done by some local residents. Following that, I think the next thing on our mind is going to be the stormwater situation, the flooding at the sewer plant, on the highway, Caltrans. It involves a lot of issues, and it contributed to the falling of several trees that threatened our evacuation, as well as cut off our power and internet. So I expect to be working on that immediately following. My goal is simple: to find somebody to own the problem at the county. And then following that, to conduct an assessment, perhaps a forensic analysis of what happened, figure out what we need in terms of capacity and how that compares with what we have, and to look toward funding it and building it. It is not going to be as easy as I thought, but we'll be working on that. And then there's a half a dozen other things we're concerned about, including healthcare on the coast, things that I know your council has also been involved and concerned with. So it's possible we could collaborate on at least some of the projects that are going to spill out of this effort under the umbrella of CRISP, which is Ray Mueller's Coastside Resilient Infrastructure Strategic Plan, which he sometimes calls coastal. But, you know, that's what we're going to try and work on overall. If there are any questions, I'm happy to try and answer.
Thank you, Greg. No questions from council. We will move on to mayor's announcements of community activities. Upcoming, the Coastal Repertory Theater, starting February 17th and going through the 26th, is presenting Rumors. This is a great chance to get out and see live theater, and the Coastal Rep is a wonderful, wonderful group. Very professional. Coastal Arts League is having their annual student art show from March 2nd to March 27th. And that's always a fun thing. The students are very talented. And the last thing I have to mention is Teacher Appreciation Fundraiser event. Every year we try to get folks to give what they can. $100 per teacher if you can do it. If not, whatever you can do. Go to coastside365.com and donate there, or it'll tell you where to send your donation. That runs from March 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. And that's it. I don't believe we have any report out from recent closed sessions, Catherine?
Correct, Mayor. There have been no recent closed sessions and therefore no report outs.
Okay. We'll move on to city manager updates to council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 2 updates tonight. The first will be by Todd Seeley, our Public Works Superintendent. And then that'll be followed by Lisa Lopez Rossi, our Admin Services Director and currently interim Assistant City Manager. Todd.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Good evening, Mayor Penrose, Vice Mayor Jimenez, and honorable council members. I'm here to give you a brief update as to the storm response from late last year, earlier this year. Do we have the slideshow ready to go?
Hold on a sec, Todd, I can pull it up.
Jessica, are you guys seeing it right now?
Yes.
Alrighty, sorry for that. Every time I come on, it seems there's some sort of technical issue, but it looks like we've got it resolved and we're ready to rock and roll. The first slide is regarding FEMA assistance. So particularly with regards to Oak Avenue, private property damages and losses are covered under the Presidential Disaster Declaration, but it's important to keep in mind that the deadline to submit is March 16th. There's a link, disasterassistance.gov, that folks that are impacted by any damages can get to and start that process. City-related costs, including staffing and emergency contracts, are covered under the declaration, but actual reimbursements are subject to FEMA review and guidelines. With that in mind, public infrastructure was recently added to the declaration, and the city will continue to seek funds to rehabilitate and reconstruct public infrastructure damaged in the storms. Lots of record keeping and documenting is taking place on our end to ensure that whatever funds we are eligible for, we are going to be able to go after and get those funds. It's a lot of work on the back end, but definitely worthwhile work. Let's see here.
Hey, Todd.
So, yeah, Matthew.
I think we're all getting a weird looking screen. Could you unshare your screen and then reshare
You got
it?
it, boss. Jessica, are you able to share the slide deck?
Yeah, hold on one sec.
With the winds out there, if this is the worst thing that happens, we're in good shape.
We have power out at the courtyard, so we're doing just fine.
I can get it to download. 1 second.
So while Jessica's getting that up, we will talk about Oak Avenue Park next. Obviously, that area was one of the most heavily impacted areas in town. we will talk about it a little in the slide, but I just wanted to let you guys, everyone know that one of the coolest things that we're working on right now is that we actually have our environmental consultant, SWCA, conducting aerial drone surveys of the area from where Pillarcitos Creek outfalls into the Pacific up to about where the post office is. And with those surveys, they're going to be able to do a bunch of mapping and identification of hotspots so that when we are able to get into the creek, we'll have a good idea of where exactly our target areas are going to be. Obviously, there's some areas that have a significant buildup of debris that got washed downstream and stuff like that. So that is ongoing. If you see, I don't know how much they got done today with all the wind and that little tiny drone flying around, but they were scheduled to start today and they did a little bit of work. So hopefully they finish up with their aerial surveys by the end of the week. With Oak Avenue Park, city staff has begun an extensive cleanup of the area. With most of the areas we're dealing with, it's still a little wet. Believe it or not, even almost 2 months later, the silt buildup is still fairly moist underneath, and it's just problematic for us to get our equipment in there. But we have started a cleanup of the area. The playground and restroom facilities are back open and operational, so that's good news. And as I discussed earlier, the aerial survey and biological, the beginning of the biological consulting, monitoring and permitting that's going to be required to do all this work has already started under this, under some work done with SWCA. Next slide, Jessica. The coastal trail adjacent to Myrtle, this is an outfall that basically outfalls right above Poplar Beach. This area conveys surface water from Myrtle Street and Railroad through the big open field over there and out here. This was noticed on early in the storm response. We did unfortunately have to close the trail completely down for a couple of days while we assessed. Public Works engineering staff are currently working on a solution to the issue. We're working with a couple local contractors to come up with a way to get this fixed in an expedient manner. It is a difficult location to repair due to the proximity to Poplar Beach. We're less than 100 feet from the beach where this damage occurred. But the good news is the area has been deemed safe for pedestrian travel and has been clearly delineated to keep visitors away from the damaged area. Hopefully looky-loos don't go and try and see what's going on over there, but we feel that we have a pretty good fence perimeter set up to keep people out of there. Next slide, Jessica. There are a couple other areas of concern that we did experience as a result of the storm. As some of you or most of you may know, there's an extensive sediment buildup and debris accumulation underneath Highway 1. That's highlighted in the two pictures with arrows pointing into it. There's also some minor damage to vertical access point at Cañada Verde and Poplar Beach staircases. And city staff are currently evaluating costs and method to repair all three of these areas. Next slide, please. Finally, next step, staff will continue to work with partner agencies to determine the best way to move forward with repairs. We will be developing projects to address the issues brought about by storm events. And as mentioned prior, we will be documenting all work and apply for reimbursements through FEMA and Cal OES due to the local emergency declaration that was made last month. That is it. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Todd, what's the situation with the access to Surface Beach?
Councilmember Rohrbach, that area is not in city limits, so that's been kind of put off the back burner for right now. Obviously, we understand it's a huge issue. Technically, the county owns that land, so we are kind of deferring to them at this point. Hopefully that a solution to that area can be developed and resolved quickly so that we don't need to intervene, but we're kind of letting the county take the lead at this point.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. There's discussions between Caltrans and the county who each have some level of responsibility to that access point and the coastal trail adjacent to it. Unfortunately, the county was hit extremely hard. A lot of their infrastructure was damaged, and I know they're kind of systematically going through and making those improvements. But we'll check in with them and follow up with you at a future meeting if that's okay.
Yes, thanks.
Should I go?
Oh, did you not hear me? Can you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you. I think you were
sorry.
muted.
I said, Lisa, you're
No
up.
wonder you were looking at the camera that way. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I apologize for not jumping on this sooner, but I just wanted to come on tonight and refresh everyone's memory about the 2023 listening sessions and the rescheduled dates. As you all know, we had our first one last week, which was via Zoom. And we got some really good feedback from the community members who did attend. Some things that we are already compiling into the report that will be presented to you. And as you know, and as the community probably knows, but I will remind it, this is actually a crucial part of our budgeting process. These listening sessions actually help us hear directly from community members on the significance of things in the community that they would like to see the city and council focus their energy on. So we're excited that the next two will be in person. And the next one is going to be at the Half Moon Bay Library on Sunday, February 26th in the afternoon at 3 p.m. This one will be in Spanish. However, we will have English interpretation available. So we encourage all community members, if this is the one that you can attend, please come on down. It will be from 3 to 5, 2 hours. Then on Thursday, March 2nd, we will have our final listening session at the Ted Adcock Community Center. And that one begins at 6 p.m. and will go to 8 p.m. with Spanish interpretation provided similar to that of the council meetings. Also, just so the community is aware, on Wednesday, March 8th, we will have the city council priority setting session at the Ted Adcock Center beginning at 9 a.m. This one will also be in English, but again, Spanish interpretation will be provided. So we also would like to remind the community that if you cannot attend one of these, we still really want to encourage people to provide feedback via the website and our listening session survey. And that can be addressed if you go to the city website and click on the listening sessions flag that is the flag, the flag on the website. It will take you to the website, which is, of course, www.halfmoonbay.ca.us/listening sessions. So thank you.
So if I could just quickly share with the council and the public, this is, as of today, will be our last meeting on Zoom, completely virtual. So we will see everyone in person on March 7th. The City Council and Planning Commission will both meet at the Ted Adcock Community Center at 535 Kelly Avenue. And the meetings will be hybrid. So if you look at the future agendas, you'll see an option to view the meeting by Zoom and provide your public comments via Zoom, or you're also welcome to come to the council chambers and attend the meetings in person, which is where council staff and presenters will be. So our first in-person meeting will be Tuesday, March 7th, followed by a priority setting on March 8th, and then Planning Commission's first in-person meeting will be on March 14th. And the agendas will have the necessary information on both ways to participate.
Madam Mayor, you are muted.
I apologize. We're moving on to public forum for items that are not on the agenda. Anybody that wishes to speak can please raise their hand.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Joanne Rokoski.
Good evening. My name's Joanne Murkowski, and I'm a member of Coastside Faith in Action and the Unitarian Universalist Coastside community. I thank you for the opportunity to make a public comment this evening. I know that we are all grateful for the chance to take a breath after the twin devastations of the January storms followed by the shootings. It's good to have the chance to take this breath. But then we need, and I urge us to renew our focus to correct the unconscionable housing situations faced by farm workers and other coastside residents who work hard to provide goods and services needed in our community, but do not make sufficient income to afford the high cost of housing in this area. Representatives of the ALAS Affordable Housing Committee have come to city council meetings for months, telling their stories of how hard they have to work to afford housing that is overcrowded, sometimes substandard, and yet still demands a huge proportion of their income. They need low income and very low income housing now, not years in the future. So I urge you to take action to move past the bureaucratic obstacles and community opposition by those who will continually erect excuses and barriers and get housing built for all our essential workers now. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Anne?
Hi, thank you so much. I was not prepared to speak, but I do want to talk about the same situation that your previous speaker discussed. And I think that there is confusion sometimes with the fact that people think that certain areas like Moss Beach, where I live, that we don't want housing, and that's simply not true. We are not equipped with the proper infrastructure to handle the type of housing that we are expected to handle. There are 2 sites that are designated for affordable housing in Moss Beach, both at the north and south end of towns. We do not even have a single traffic light. We also have the Big Wave community going in, and they have not put in the housing that they promised for the disabled adults at Big Wave, which they should. And so all I've been asking for, and I'm not opposed to affordable housing, I am opposed to being the one to have to pay for all the infrastructure as a homeowner. That is what concerns me, is that that is falling on us and the county is not providing sufficient funding. And we need our sewer system upgraded. We need various upgrades. The power constantly goes out, and it's going out in Moss Beach now. And we need upgrades. Without those upgrades, we can't handle more people. And so that is all we're asking for, is for your support as well as our neighbors to the south, because your workers do benefit from the housing. We are asking for your support. Please help us get the infrastructure we need so that we can support our community as well as new residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Carolina Carvajal?
Hola, muy buenas noches.
Buenas noches, señor. Habla su humilde servidor, Víctor Hernández. Voy a ser su traductor.
¿Me escucha?
Sí, ¿me escucha usted? Testing 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? Okay. ¿Me escuchas, Carolina?
Sí, dígame.
A ver.
Sí, sí, sí.
Ah, qué bueno.
Ahora sí la escucho.
Muy bien, gracias por su paciencia. Muy
¿Me
buenas
escucha usted?
noches. Sí, perfectamente.
¿Me puede escuchar?
Testing, claro que sí.
Bueno,
I think we're having audio issues, if I'm not mistaken.
tengo una mala señal. Hola.
Adelante.
Carolina?
Bueno,
Carolina, ¿sí me escucha?
Sí, dígame. ¿Sí me escucha
Sí,
ahora?
muy bien, sí, ya lo podemos escuchar.
No, a él no.
A Víctor. Víctor, a ver.
señora, ¿me escucha?
No, solo a usted.
Can everybody else hear me okay?
Sí,
Yeah.
a usted sí le escucho.
Okay. ¿Sí me oye bien?
No.
Si gusta seguir adelante.
Sí, Carolina, estamos ya preparados para escucharla.
Ok, frases cortas y puede empezar ya.
Yes.
Sí, por favor, frases
Ok.
cortas, puede comenzar.
Buenas noches y gracias al concilio por siempre tomar nuestra opinión en cuenta.
So, good evening. Thank you to the council for always taking our questions.
Me parece muy bonito el proyecto que presentaron al principio, donde hablan que hay 4 personas que están viviendo bajo ese proyecto, esa tutela.
So I think that project that you guys talked about in the beginning is really nice, where the 4 people are being housed.
Y como dice el señor Rabak, no sé si lo pronuncio bien, sería muy lindo que ese proyecto abarcara a más de 100 personas.
And like Mr. Barbeck said, it would be nice if 100 people had it.
Okay.
Adelante, por favor.
En la comunidad hay mucha necesidad. Y tristemente, aunque algunas personas piensan que podemos ser la carga de alguien, somos también nosotros los que estamos sacando adelante esta ciudad.
So, there's in the community, there's a huge need, and sadly, where people think that we are the burden, is where actually we need the housing.
Somos la mano de obra de esta comunidad, somos los que nos levantamos, llueva, truene, relampaguee, a trabajar.
We are the labor force here, rain or shine, we're the ones who get up and go to work.
Así que esperemos que ese proyecto siga adelante y si funciona, cuenta con nuestro apoyo como latinos.
So we're hoping that project continues to move forward, and if it does work, then you can count with full support from us, the Latinos.
Y comentarles de que el día viernes estaríamos haciendo la marcha para las viviendas por si gustan asistir y estar allí y vernos como concilio a la comunidad.
So I wanted to comment that Friday we are doing a march for housing. So if you want to come and join the community.
La vigilia empieza a las 6 en el Fernando Park para todas las personas que gusten asistir y unirse a nuestra marcha.
Vigil starts at 6 p.m. at Fernando Park for all those who want to come.
Así que esperamos contar con su apoyo. Asimismo, esperamos verlos el día domingo 26 para que también puedan escuchar nuestras necesidades. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor. So I hope we can count on your support as well as Sunday the 26th, so you can come out to our events. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Carolina.
I have no other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, we will then move on to the consent calendar. And this evening, I I'd like to separate out item 1F, the Main Street and Kelly Avenue parcel map and subdivision improvement agreement, because I need to be recused from that. I live within 500 feet of the project. So may I have a motion excluding that particular item?
Would you like me to read the items, Mayor?
Sure.
So the motion would be to approve item 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. Item 1B, termination of local emergency related to the December, early January winter storms and flooding event. Item 1C, warrants for the month of January 2023. Item 1D, resolution appointing primary and alternate members to represent the city of Half Moon Bay on the Plan JPA Board of Directors. And item 1E, professional services agreement with NBS for cost allocation plan and user fee study and development impact fee study.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And a second?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez,
Yes.
Mayor Penrose,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, and now I'm going to ask you to read the item, and I will recuse myself.
Perfect. So the next motion would be to approve item 1F, Main Street and Kelly Avenue parcel map and subdivision improvement agreement for 433 through 447 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick,
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Jessica. We move on. We do not have ordinances or public hearings this evening, I don't think. So we'll move on to resolutions and staff reports. Item 3A, formation of a temporary ad hoc housing committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will begin this item and just give a little bit of background on it, and then I'll turn the time over to John Dowdy, our interim assistant city manager, who will provide some details and then turn the time over to you. So as we've heard from several community members tonight, and as many of us know, following the terrible shootings that took place on January 23rd, it became clear that the residents of those farms were living in really terrible conditions, and they were displaced by the shootings. And immediately work took place to ensure that those families receive temporary housing, and work continues to get them into more stable housing situations as we move forward in this process. It's also clear that we have a lot of farm workers that are living in conditions that are not ideal. And that also goes, frankly, for many of our service workers and anybody who's struggling to afford housing here on the coast. We have families that are living multiple families to a single unit. We've got converted garages. We've got other substandard conditions. We also have a sizable homeless community and individuals living in vehicles. And so, as has been a goal of this council for many years, and a lot of work has gone into identifying and preparing our community, parts of our community for affordable housing. This recent highlight of the issues has really galvanized our elected leaders at the state and federal levels. And we believe there's an opportunity working with the county and those leaders at the state and federal levels to pursue affordable housing at a pace that we have not in the past, and take advantage of opportunities related to the current challenges to make affordable housing available, both in the shorter term, but also in the long term. And to that end, at our previous meeting, it was determined that an ad hoc committee of council members could be a really beneficial group to support staff in our work in pursuing these housing opportunities. And so you asked us to come back with an item for you to vote on this week. At the previous meeting, it was suggested that the mayor and vice mayor could form that ad hoc committee. And we regularly meet with the mayor, vice mayor at the staff level. And so we've had some opportunities to discuss what this ad hoc committee could look like. And we're here tonight to share the scope and timing of that committee and hopefully move forward with that. And so with that, I'll turn the time over to John Dowdy. He'll be providing most of the staff support to this committee, as will Jessica Blair, our communications director and city clerk, who will help on the legislative side and with communications, and Jill Ickes and Mike Noche from our community development department, who have the expertise, technical expertise to support this group. John.
Thanks, and I won't take long. I know we want to get to 555 Kelly and the community's interested in that conversation, but to remind those folks in the audience as well as everyone else, the purpose of an ad hoc committee is to address and look at and try to address short-term acute needs and issues. And that's what the intent of this ad hoc committee is. We definitely see down the road the idea of a longer-term subcommittee, perhaps of the council, to look at housing on a broader scale and a broader issue perspective. But right now, there are acute issues and needs that are there that the ad hoc committee, we believe, is the most effective and efficient pathway to address. And Matthew alluded to many of those, and those being brought about from the January 23rd events. So one of the critical pieces of work that we see this subcommittee, or this committee, sorry, working on is to continue to support staff and efforts to address transitional housing needs of those displaced. Those are acute, those are needed, and city staff is doing, I think, and the county and our nonprofit partners are doing an amazing job to support those families and to make sure that they have housing, and that continues, but there continues to be efforts and needs to work through that. So that's one of the primary points of what this and why this is such an acute and immediate need. The other piece of this is to look at many of the sites that have been identified through the housing element work from staff and through the community process of opportunity sites. Many of those that have been laid out privately, publicly, and across many avenues. But what we are looking at the ad hoc committee to do is to take a look at 2 or maybe 3 of those sites and to really take a look at site planning those, looking at infrastructure issues, looking at the funding needs, and to identify potential legislative adjustments and revisions that may need to happen to facilitate their development as affordable housing sites. So there's those 2 to 3 focused affordable housing opportunity sites. And finally, I think the last piece of this is really to work with our legislative subcommittee to work on funding advocacy as well as legislative advocacy to streamline and remove barriers to affordable housing on a much broader, longer term sense. And I think many of those have been laid out by Jill and other staff over the years, and I won't go into the nitty gritty detail of that. So it's going to be, we see a collaborative effort between the ad hoc committee and the legislative subcommittee that has been appointed by the council. So that in a nutshell is where we see this moving forward. We are working on a more detailed work program. One of the first things we'll do once this committee is formed is to seek agreement with the group on what that work program looks like, and then we can share more out from that point to the community and to the council back. And we definitely see feeding back information and status to the council and the community as we move along in this process. That really covers sort of the big picture issue of how we see the ad hoc committee functioning over the next several months. Thank you.
Are there clarifying questions from council before we open it up to public forum? Okay. Jessica, do we have anyone who wants to speak to this item?
I have no hands raised yet. If there is anyone who would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Carolina?
Bueno. ¿Me escucha?
Hola, Carolina, ¿me escucha?
Tengo mucho problema con mi audio.
Can everybody hear me okay?
¿Me oye?
Okay. Sí, Carolina, ¿usted me escucha?
Mi pregunta es, este nuevo proyecto que que están organizando, está haciendo el señor John, nos brindará una respuesta a nosotros, a los trabajadores esenciales. Esa es mi pregunta en cuestión.
Gracias. So the question I have is this new project that is being kind of organized, will it bring kind of any answers to us essential workers?
Victor, could you have her finish her comment and then we can address questions?
Puede terminar su comentario y después podemos abordar preguntas, si me escucha. Bueno.
Carolina, ¿tiene otro comentario o ya terminó su comentario o pregunta?
Solamente mi pregunta era esa, si el proyecto del señor John nos va a beneficiar a nosotros. Era una pregunta, simplemente.
It was just a question if that project from Mr. John is going to benefit us. That's all. Thank you.
John, could you respond to that?
Sure. I think the formation of this ad hoc committee is intended solely to try to address the significant needs of the service worker and farm worker community, basically often referred to in the community as essential workers, to address their acute housing needs. And so absolutely, this is what this is about. That's its sole purpose.
Thank you. I see no one else from the public. Jessica, do you see anyone?
No other public comments, Mayor.
Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council.
I'm in favor of this committee. I think the fact that the mayor and vice mayor are on the record as indicating the urgency of getting our essential workers housed as soon as possible speaks well for those two people who are this ad hoc committee. So I'm definitely in favor of going forward with the proposal. Thank you.
I'd like to move formation of the committee, subcommittee.
Just to clarify, the motion would be to adopt the resolution forming the committee.
Move that we adopt the resolution to form the committee.
Second.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez,
Yes.
Mayor Penrose,
Yes,
motion carries.
great. We will move on to 555 Kelly Affordable Housing Development.
Mayor, I'm gonna
Yeah.
recuse myself from this item.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna be recusing from this item. I'm gonna recuse.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes, I see that Joaquin has turned off his video. That's really important during the recusal process. Isn't that correct, Catherine?
Yes, that's the process that we use for Zoom meetings. That the council member who recuses, as a reminder, council member or Vice Mayor Jimenez has recused on all items regarding this project, given that he's employed by Alice, which is one of the co-applicants. So the process with Zoom is to turn off the camera. Now, when we go back in person in a couple weeks, the process is a little different, and the council member that needs to recuse actually leaves the council chambers during the discussion of that item. So that's the process for now, and we'll make sure after we finish that typically the city manager will text the vice mayor and make sure he comes back before we move on. Thank you.
All right. So that I did not turn off my video when I recused myself during
the consent calendar. Yes, Mayor, the consent calendar is different because it's on consent. There's no need to turn off your camera. And likewise, when we go back in person, there's no need to even leave the room either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I believe that's my cue. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Penrose and council members. Mike Noche, Housing Coordinator for the city. I am going to pull up our presentation. All right, and you should see, sorry, I'm just rearranging things on my screen here.
Looks good on our end, Mike.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. All right, so this evening, the item in front of council is the pre-development loan funding agreement. And just to provide some background to the council and members of the public, the city released an RFQ, which stands for Request for Qualifications, on February 15th. That closed in May. The RFQ released was for soliciting affordable housing development on city-owned property at 555 Kelly Avenue. That process and part of what the city was looking at, we did look at a number of different sites, and we had essentially a limited number of sites that were feasible for housing. 555 Kelly was essentially the best option of city-owned property that was available for this type of use. The site is small, so it does come with some constraints. The city did solicit multiple nonprofits to apply, but due to the size of the site, there was essentially nonprofit developers who were essentially not interested in a site that was this small. The loan proposal that the city did receive, and we do appreciate receiving it, is the essentially a dual proposal from Mercy Housing and a loss. This is for a 40 affordable unit building, which would be geared toward farm worker housing. The building would include a resource center, and it would essentially consist of 4 stories to meet the 40 units as proposed. The main reason, and this is included in the staff report, is that the 40 units essentially is the threshold for certain financing structures that would support the project. So as far as the site, an overview, here we have the Ted Adcock Community Center to the north. of the city-owned site. So it's a combination of the community center parking lot and 555 Kelly, which is a single-family home that the city purchased back in 2017. And I know this is a repeat slide for many who have heard me share this information with council in the past, but I think it is pertinent to continue to share for new listeners and folks watching. The project being geared toward farm worker housing is essentially geared toward our lowest income categories due to the wages that are received in that industry. So we're looking at acutely low and extremely low. Acutely low, as shown here, this is for the 2022 income categories. The 2023 numbers are typically released in April, May, or June. So that will be updated. That being said, and point being that your max rent for someone within this income category is typically about 30% of their household income. So for a studio, what would be affordable is about $436 per month for acutely low. The item in front of council is for the approval for the resolution, which would grant the city manager and city manager to enter into an agreement with Mercy Housing for pre-development costs associated with the project. Below on the second half of the screen here is a summary of pre-development activities. The city's contribution would be $1 million, and there is a pro forma included in the staff report as well. The one item also just to highlight about the county funding that you see here, the 1.5 million. This is from the county's American Rescue Plan Fund. It is not necessarily typical to see county funding at this stage. So it just demonstrates the partnership that the city and county have in essentially supporting the activities here. And the pre-development activities really outline what if the project is feasible as far as soil and environmental reports, additional subsidies and architectural plans that will be investigated during that period. The loan terms are essentially in the spirit of partnership. These loan terms are favorable, but also provide the city with the opportunity to pursue action if there were a default that was related to essentially any of the pre-development activities not being pursued prominently as outlined in the agreement. The milestones for the agreement are also included in the staff report. I believe it's attachment 2. And upcoming items to expect. So in the next few months, the city has received some preliminary outlines of and information about Mercy and Alasa's plans for community outreach. We will report back to council as well as promote the essentially community events related to this project. Staff will also be returning to the city council for the $1.5 million pre-development grant. So that was the 1.5 pre-development funding outlined in the earlier slide. We'll be coming back to council to seek approval of an agreement with the county as well as an agreement with Mercy. So the city will be the primary holder of those funds. So the county will be issuing to the city and the city will manage those project funds with Mercy Housing. So altogether, it's 2.5 million for the pre-development activities. I also just want to note as I wrap up that we do have our consultant Janet Stone on the meeting tonight, as well as representatives from Mercy Housing to assist with any questions that arise. And thank you very much.
Council, are there any questions before we seek public comment? Seeing no questions, do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment?
Not yet. Any public speakers, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone, Mayor.
Okay, bring it back to council. Questions, comments?
When we first heard about the financing for this proposal, we were going to throw in all $2 million of our affordable housing fund. So I'm glad that the county has come on board, and at this point, we're only going to commit $1 million for pre-development financing. As I've said before, very much in favor of this plan. And what else can I say? So, thank you.
Anyone else on council? Yes, Councilmember Ruddock.
Yes, I asked several questions of staff today and some answered. And the thing that concerns me is the staff report already identifies a $500,000 operational shortfall. And we'll need to find ways to make the operational piece beyond the construction to work and be feasible. So my comment is that, and I trust that staff and Mercy Housing will work through these details, but that the city needs protection in its agreements to make sure that we protect the financial interests of the city at large, so that, for instance, we're not transferring land without sufficient agreements to create milestones and deliverables and progress on the whole project. I don't want to just have the city turn over the land and then the project doesn't work. So I want our agreements to be sure, and I've had that conversation with staff, that the city's finances are protected going forward. So, we need this housing, but we also need to acknowledge, like I mentioned previously, we're not a wealthy community. We don't have a lot of money in the kitty for affordable housing, that the housing really should be, the responsibility of the county and the state and the federal government and private foundations, with the city, leveraging some resources to help make this project happen. So, we want it to happen, but we want to make sure the city's protected. So that's the only comment I have. And, I trust that staff hears me on that, and that the agreements moving forward will, reflect that. So that's all I have to say.
Any other comments? Well, I would like to say that I'm very excited about the project. I have read Councilmember Ruddock's questions to staff and read the answers, and feel confident the staff will be able to deal with the reservations that Councilmember Ruddock may have had. I think that as excited as we are about this, we do have to protect the city. We do have to protect our investment. We don't want to be putting $1 million out of our affordable housing fund out there, spend it, and have it bring us back nothing. So I think staff knows what they're doing. I trust that they will take care of business. And I'm excited about seeing 40 units going up. And Councilmember Brownstone.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. The only thing I would add is it's $1 million from our housing fund, plus the $1 million we spent for 555 Kelly. So actually, you know, when we talk about protecting an investment, it's an investment of $2 million altogether. So we do want to make sure that in the interests of the city and all our residents, that we're always protecting the fiduciary duty, a large investment like that. So great.
Thank you. Councilmember Jimenez, you have recused, that's correct. Okay, forgot about that. Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a pre-development loan agreement between the city and Mercy Housing, a California limited partnership, in an amount not to exceed $1 million from the Affordable Housing Fund to support pre-development activities for an affordable housing project on city-owned land at 535 and 555 Kelly Avenue.
Second.
On roll call.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick,
Yes.
Mayor Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we will move on to item 3C, review of Half Moon Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 1.30, contributions and loans to city candidate campaigns.
Thank you. This will be a fairly quick report. It's in our municipal code that the city council is to review our campaign contribution ordinance following each election. And so this is that review. The ordinance was last updated in, the date is missing. I believe it was 2020 that we switched it to limit contributions by an individual to $250, contributions by an organization to $500, and then also that the outstanding balance a candidate may loan their campaign at any given time is $1,500. So these are the current limits under the local ordinance. And so the council is free to keep those limits the same or modify them to your choosing. However, our city attorney is going to provide a brief update on Senate Bill 1439, which does include, is a new law that includes some provisions around campaign contributions. So, Catherine?
Great, thank you, Jessica. Yeah, so as noted in the staff report, SB 1439 went into effect January 1st. And this is a state law that expands what's sometimes been referred to as the pay-to-play restrictions regarding campaign contributions. And what it does is it extends rules that were previously applicable only to planning commissioners and other appointed officials that were running for city council. And now extends more broadly to all local elected officials, including city council members. And it imposes a restriction that if a council member receives more than $250 from an individual who has a permit or some other sort of application pending before the council would need to recuse, not vote on that item during sort of a 12-month before and after blackout period. So that's a $250 limit that and that goes into effect prospectively. So starting January 1st, that would apply. Now, here in Half Moon Bay, that new state law wouldn't really come into play so much under the current contribution limits because there's a $250 maximum. So this new state law would generally not be applicable. That said, if the council were to choose to increase the current limit of $250 by an individual above that, then the council members will need to keep an eye out for this state law. So that's that's in a nutshell what it does. But again, it doesn't prohibit you from changing the contribution limits in your ordinance. It just is something you might want to consider in deciding whether or not to change the current limits. So I think that's the end of our presentation. And so you can let me and Jessica know if you have any questions.
Any clarifying questions from council? Seeing no raised hands, do we have any public comment?
None so far, Mayor. We can give it a minute. Not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council for comments, questions.
And so just to clarify, the direction we're looking for is whether the council prefers to keep the ordinance as is, or whether you would like us to make any modifications, at which point we would bring back an ordinance making those changes.
I'm in favor of keeping the current campaign finance limits. I think they're reasonable, and I see no reason to change them.
Councilmember Ruddock.
Our town, at least, and given the new campaign paradigm of a lot of it done by text and email, you don't need a lot of money in this town, as far as I can tell, to run a campaign. Maybe you need more if you're a complete unknown, and need to, get your name out in front of the community. But basically, campaigning has evolved to basically social media thing. And your major investment is the voter file, which has, people's names and addresses and how often they voted and all that stuff. So I think our ordinance as is sufficient, would be my take on it, having just run a recent campaign.
Councilmember Brownstone.
Yeah, I also agree that the current limits are fine, especially now that we're, fully district elections. There are no citywide elections, so someone only has to run in their smaller district. And I think current funding limits pretty much work. So yeah, I wouldn't raise anything either.
Okay. Councilmember Jimenez, do you have anything to add?
No, I completely agree with with the ordinance that we have right now. It's been it's my experience, running on the election 2020 with the donations to the campaign. I think it works well with a small community like ours.
Okay, thank you. I'm also in agreement with leaving the ordinance as it is, so I will ask for a motion, please.
We have a consensus to keep the ordinance as is, and that suffices. So
that's all we need to do. Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. We will move on to item 3D, which is the financial and treasurer's report for the quarter ending December 31, 2022.
Hello, good evening. So good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. Today we have presenting two reports, the financial report and the treasurer's report. We do these reports generally quarterly, and this is for the second quarter that has ended on December 31st, 2022, which means that we are halfway through our fiscal year. We have a short agenda, pretty much the highlights and the summaries, highlighting the revenue and expenditures for the general fund, talking a little bit about our reserves, and then finally our fund balances and what we look like, what we look to look like at the end of the fiscal year. And then finally the treasurer's report. Now, again, this is a summary. This presentation is a summary of these reports, but for members of the public in the addendum packet, these reports have a little bit more detail and more analysis. Starting with revenues. So the city has three major revenues: transient occupancy tax, or TOT, hotel tax, property taxes, and sales and use tax. For TOT, we had budgeted for 8.7 million. And on December 31st, we had received 3.9. That translates to about 45% of our budget. And when you compare it to the same period last year, we had received 35%. So what that is signaling is that we're doing a little bit better than what we had budgeted for, what we had anticipated. And for this line item, we are anticipating that we will come back to council in March to adjust it during the mid-year review. Also, there is an additional slide talking more about TOT on a monthly level. For property taxes, we budgeted about 3.4, received about 1.9. That's about 56% of budget. Comparing it to last year, we received 37% at the same time period, but we had a big one-time payment at the end of the last year. The county released some vehicle in lieu fees, and it kind of skews that number. For property taxes, we received most of it in two payments, December and April. So we really want to be around the 50% number at the end of December, which we're at 56. So this is another line item that staff is anticipating to adjust a little bit during the mid-year review. Sales and use taxes, they're tracking as anticipated, budgeted 3, received 1.1. We're at 37% compared to 32. We're tracking about the same. This can go either way as far as whether or not we adjust it. The city has a sales and use tax consultant that we review our numbers with, and we're waiting on what they're forecasting for us. But as of right now, it's looking pretty good. Total revenues, we've received about 10 million, about 49% of budget. In conclusion, we're tracking better than what we had budgeted for. Traditionally or historically, we budget pretty conservative and then kind of do these adjustments every 6 months or so. We are anticipating the number to go up in March. But again, we will have much more detail for council to review each line item the following month. As promised, here's our TOT by the month. The darker teal columns are what we received for this year. The gray columns are what we received for the applicable month the prior year. And this is based off of rooms rented. So for the month of July, based on rooms rented, we received 989,000 compared to last year's July, 966. So you can see for the first 4 months, we've been tracking better than the previous year. November, however, we missed our prior year mark by about 10K. As of right now, and with the data in front of me, I'm not anticipating this to be a long-term trend. I want to remind council that November, December, January, February are traditionally our lower end months, and missing it by 10K is not too much to think about at this time, but it is something to know. Another highlight for council is that our TOT numbers lag by 2 months. So this is the most up-to-date information. November, the rooms booked in November are due by the end of December, and they don't show up to our bank until January. So this is as up to date. On the general fund expenditure side, we're looking pretty good. We're at 33% of budget. You can see by the different operating departments, we are under 50% for all. And the only thing to highlight here that we tend to get questions on is the city manager's office budget line, that 8 million. That's where our sheriff contract is, our former and all our sheriff contract is. Other than that, we're tracking as appropriately. Reserves and fund balances. To the left of that table is our adopted budget. We had estimated that our ending fund balance would be 13.4 million at the end of this fiscal year. We set aside 9.7 million in reserves. That's about 50% of our expenditures per our general fund policy. We have unassigned funds of 3.6 million. And for members of the public, unassigned funds are funds. How they come to be is that since we budget pretty conservatively, sometimes we make more than what we anticipate, and then sometimes we spend less than what we anticipate. And they kind of accumulate in these unassigned funds. And then later on in the budget cycle, we assign them. As of right now, we have 3.6 million. Staff is not recommending assigning these funds until at least mid-year, preferably at the beginning of the fiscal year. The reason is that during the mid-year review or during a budget cycle, the council and members of the public have the chance to review all their options ahead of them in one packet. And then finally, the treasurer's report. Now, the treasurer's report is a required report as a state requirement. It's generally just reporting out how much the city has in cash and investments, how much we have in the bank at a particular date. On December 31st, our cash and investments totaled 51.9 million. 19 million of that is the general fund. And then our average weighted yield for the quarter was 1.66. Generally, every dollar that we have in the bank, we earn 1.66% on it. Now, as you can see, that's up from the same period from last year. As we're all probably feeling for the past year and a half, inflation has risen considerably for the past 18 months or so. And in response to that, the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates to address that. We're starting to see that in our investments as well. So it's gone up to 1.66, and pre-pandemic, we were around 2.1, 2.3. So we're inching closer to where we were before the pandemic. With that, our recommendations for council tonight is to accept the financial report and the treasurer's report for the quarter ended December 31st, 2022. And with that, I will take any questions.
Does council have any questions? Councilmember Ruddock.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just want to thank Ken for a really, great, straightforward report. I think we can always count on Ken to, deliver the numbers in an easily digestible way. And, we're looking pretty good. So I just want to say thank you to the staff.
Of course, thank you.
Any questions? Any other comments?
Should we check for any public comment, Mayor?
Yeah.
Don't see any hands raised yet, but if anyone would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. I don't believe we have any comments.
Okay, we'll move it back to council for a motion.
I can make a motion. I move that we accept the financial report and the treasurer's report for the quarter ended on December 31st, 2022.
Second.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Roback?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
And Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm also sneezing.
Salud.
Items for future discussion, possible agenda items. And city council reports.
I can make a quick report out. I attended the commute.org meeting as a member of their board. And some good news, you're probably all familiar with the 101 Express Lane project. And it's 22 miles long of express lane. First phase ran from East Palo Alto to Redwood City and was opened February 2022. And I'm happy to say phase 2 is about to open in March. It's another 14 miles that goes all the way up to South San Francisco. So in totality, 22 miles from East Palo Alto to South San Francisco. The other thing that was of great interest to me was they are starting in a very thoughtful way an equity program to assure that extremely low income folks can have access to those express lanes at greatly reduced rates. We also have a very good planning and communications group, and they would be happy to attend not only a future council meeting to publicize the program, but also they will work with community organizations, whether it's Coastside Hope, for example, ALAS, and give really good counsel and advice on how to get people enrolled in the program, how to get people, special fast track device, so as many people who live on the coast can take advantage. And one of the biggest equity issues that make having this better access for everyone to those commute lanes is that folks who are working in lower income jobs, they can't always afford to be late for work, as many of those in higher income jobs can. People who work in Silicon Valley, they can drive in, get onto meetings in their car, and not feel like their job is at risk if they're late for a job. And that's a luxury and privilege for many and not always equitable reality for others. So I think this equity program can be very helpful for people living on the coast side, especially since it covers the new commute lanes will cover such a broad 22-mile space. So again, we can invite them to come, do a quick presentation, and then they will be happy to work with some of our own community organizations to get the word out.
Great idea. Let's invite them. Any other council reports? Councilmember Reddick.
Yeah, so a quick one shoreline report. There was a request at our last meeting to expand the county's early flood warning program, which involves having, stream gauges in various watersheds in the county and creates an early warning system. And it worked pretty well over on the bay side. They want to extend it to the coast. So one shoreline staff will be contacting our staff for recommendations, whether we want to expand the monitoring on Pilarcitos Creek, because I understand the SFPC already has one gauge, or whether we want to do Arroyo León or whatever. But I expect that they will be contacting our staff about that. Where should we put new stream gauges? And then we're beginning to create an interactive GIS map that will identify potential coastside projects for one shoreline funding or technical assistance. And so this map will include potential projects on the coast addressing erosion, flooding, and sea level rise. And that still hasn't come to the One Shoreline Board, but it's being wrapped up into our meeting, I think, next Monday. And then at the SAM meeting, we honored Director Rick Lohman, who recently passed away. We passed a resolution honoring him to give to his family. There's a bunch of other SAM issues, but that's for another time. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, in light of that, I will adjourn this meeting. I'll see you all in person in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Right.